Hey everybody, on today's project I'm going to show you how to install the Schluter Kerdi shower system. If you watch this video all the way through, it's going to show you what tools you're going to need, how to actually install the Kerdi membrane. It's going to show you how to cut and install the shower pan and how to set the shower drain, how to cut and set the actual shower curb, and finally how to install the waterproofing around the valve. Lastly, it's going to show you how to perform a leak test to make sure your installation was done properly. This is episode 2 in my bathroom remodel series, in which I took the dated half bath you just saw and completely converted it into the full bathroom you're looking at now. But that's enough talk. Let's get into the video.
Alright, what's going on, guys? Before you can even think about installing this membrane, you have to have a solid substrate. I installed the cement board in my previous video, and I'll leave a card above in case you want to check it out. With that said, you're going to need a 1/4 inch by 3/16 inch V-notch trowel, also a putty knife, and I have an X-Acto knife or utility knife and another putty knife before I even got started mixing up the mortar. So for warranty purposes, I went with a Schluter all-set thinset. It's a little more pricey than the generic stuff, but it keeps your warranty intact and doesn't void it. So go ahead and mix up whatever thinset you use according to the manufacturer's instructions. So here I am just kind of adding the thinset to the water and mixing it up with my drill there. So to prevent the cement board from drying out the thinset too quickly, I applied a little bit of water using a damp sponge. The Schluter all-set called for a 2-part mix, so I'm handling that there. Then go ahead and take your membrane and cut the height to size. I show this much more clearly on the next wall, but what you do is take your thinset and apply it with the V-notch trowel, and once you have the V-notches in the thinset, go ahead and stick the Kerdi membrane to the thinset. So here I am doing that again, taking the V-notch trowel. I'm applying just a base layer with the flat side and then using the V-notches when I actually stick the membrane to it. Once you have that done, go ahead and take your putty knife and squeeze out any excess thinset that's trapped beneath the membrane so that it's smooth all the way through. So here I am taking the mortar and applying it with the flat side first and kind of burning it into the cement board. And then I'm switching over to the V-notch side and actually applying the notches. Once you have all your notches in, you're going to go ahead and cut your membrane, and you're going to cut it so it goes all the way up to the ceiling and then all the way down to the floor. So I already pre-cut that, and there I am actually bonding it to the mortar and pushing it in with my hands to start before I go ahead and grab my putty knife. So I cut it a little bit long here, so I'm cutting it in that corner with a utility knife. You have the option to have the walls overlap, but it's a little bit thicker than the Kerdi band that we'll apply later. So there's 2 ways to do it. One, you can have the Kerdi membrane overlap by 2 inches, or you can use Kerdi band in the corners. And there I was just cutting out the actual shower niche. And for the final step, I'm taking the putty knife and squeezing out any excess. So instead of overlapping the adjacent walls by 2 inches with the membrane, I opted to use Kerdi band. So apply the mortar to the corners just like you did for the walls, and then comb out your V-notches, then crease the Kerdi band down the middle, and then apply it to the corner. You can use the putty knife to make sure it's into the corner where it needs to be, and then go ahead and squeeze out any excess that got trapped behind the band. So here I am applying thinset to the other corner with my trowel. Go ahead and put it in with the flat side first, and then comb out your V-notches just like you did on the other wall. Once you have your V-notches in place, fold your Kerdi band down the middle to give it that crease for the corner, and then apply it to the corner using your putty knife to squeeze out any excess thinset that might have got stuck behind the band. So it's a very similar process for the band that goes around the mixing valve. Go ahead and apply your thinset with the flat side first, and then comb out the V-notches. And then you're going to take your waterproofing band and apply it around the mixing valve. Once it's in place, take your putty knife and squeeze out any excess that got trapped behind the band, and make sure it's a smooth transition from band to the actual Kerdi membrane as I'm doing there. Just go ahead and feather it out to make sure there's not a large buildup of thinset in any one spot. And you guessed it, we got more of the same for the actual shower spout. So apply the mortar, comb in your V-notch, and then take your waterproofing band, slide it over the spout, and feather out the thinset just like you did for the mixing valve. So more likely than not, you're gonna have to cut at least a small segment of the shower pan to make it fit your application. So the way to do this is use a straight edge to make sure your line is straight, then go ahead and run a utility knife along the actual shower pan. It actually breaks off very easily after that. It was a little bit off frame, but once I cut that, I just snapped it in place. So here I am cutting the other side, using the straight edge and utility knife to score that line. And then I'm going ahead and deepening it with the utility blade there. And then I'm going to go ahead and just fold it over on itself, and it'll break just like that. So I decided to use a slightly larger trowel for the shower pan just to make sure that I had adequate thinset for it to set up. So this is a 1/4 inch square notch trowel, and there I am combing out the notches. Once you have all the notches combed out, you're all set to actually go and install the shower pan.
Okay, at this point we got our pan that we already cut, and we're just gonna kind of slide it into place.
So a little bit of a tight fit there, but we got it in and got it set up in the thinset. So applying a little bit of body weight there to the shower pan to make sure it's actually set in the thinset. I applied some paper down to make sure I didn't damage the pan, and that was that. So for the inside corners where the shower pan intersects with the membrane, you're going to install what Schluter calls their Kerdi kereck, which is a prefab piece specifically designed for the inside corners. So go ahead and apply the mortar the same way you've been doing, using the V-notch trowel to make sure you have good coverage. Then stick the Kerdi kereck in the corner and comb out any excess with the putty knife. So here I am doing that on the other side, taking my V-notch trowel and applying the notches. And once that's done properly, I take the Kerdi kereck, put it into the corner, and then take the putty knife and squeeze out any excess that got caught behind. Next up, I took some mortar and I applied that between the two inside corners to waterproof the seam between the shower pan and the membrane. And for that, you're going to use Kerdi band again. So again, crease that down the middle and put it against the wall, making sure that you have at least 2 inches of overlap between the Kerdi kerecks in the corner and the Kerdi band. Comb the excess out like you've done for all the other walls, and that's going to take care of that back side. You're going to repeat this process for the other 2 walls. So to install the actual shower drain, I applied a copious amount of thinset to the drain indentation. Once that was in place, I took the plastic drain, positioned it where it needed to be, and kind of pushed down and twisted it into place to make sure it was properly set in the mortar. Once it looked good, I checked the level to make sure it was all set, and then I spread out the excess thinset around the actual drain. So after the majority of the thinset was spread out, I flipped the trowel over and combed the notches into the thinset. Once that was done, I took the waterproofing band, centered it around the drain, pushed it into place with my hand to get it positioned, and then I took my putty knife and combed out any excess that got behind the actual band. And there's a look at the finished product. So next up, we're going to install the shower curb. So you're going to go ahead and apply the mortar just like before, combing in your notches. And more than likely, you're going to need to cut the shower curb. And that can be done with a utility knife, just like I'm showing there, but it actually cuts pretty easily. So once you have it cut to size, you're going to stick it down into the mortar and make sure it's set properly, and then put a level on it to make sure that your installation is done nice and plumb and level. So once your curb is set in the mortar as you like it, you're going to do more waterproofing along the other 2 sides of the wall. So just like we did before, you're going to take your Kerdi kereck, put it in the corner, and then take your Kerdi band as I'm doing there and apply it just like I'm showing, just like we did before, feathering out any excess underneath it. And you're going to do that for all 4 corners. It's a little messy, but that's what you got to do. So I didn't do a great job recording the outside corners, but Schluter manufactures an outside Kerdi kereck that you need to apply the same way you did the inside corners, which is applying the mortar and combing out any excess with the putty knife. Here's a look at everything dried. So once you've given it around 1 or 2 days to dry, I recommend that you perform a leak test to make sure that what you've done was done correct and that the whole shower is watertight. So apply a 2-inch plug like you just saw me do to the drain, and then fill the shower pan up so that all of the Kerdi band and Kerdi kerecks are completely submerged in water. Then, once you have your water level, go ahead and establish that with a pencil so you have a line that shows the water level at the start of the water test.
Alright, so it's 24 hours later, still got the water there. You can see the line's been pretty much unaffected. So I got my assistant down below us. I'm gonna go ahead and open this up and see what happens.
So, assuming there were no leaks, your line should be the same. You can go ahead and remove the drain plug. Make sure you have something to actually catch the water underneath. And that's the end of the water test. A successful completion.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If this video helped you out, I'd appreciate if you could drop a like down below and leave a comment if there's anything in this project you would have done differently. In episode 3 of the bathroom remodel series, I'm going to be tiling the shower pan like you're seeing behind me. So please subscribe to the channel if you want to be a part of that. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.